Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you, hello, and welcome to Just a Minute. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme four exciting, dynamic performers, and they are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Alun Cochrane, and seated on my left, Jonathan Ross and Liza Tarbuck. Please welcome all four of them. Beside me sits Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me with the score, and she will blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And Paul, let's begin with you. Oh, here's a good subject. Why I hate roller coasters. Paul, tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
I hate roller coasters because of the physical experience. The combination of speed and height is a rather terrifying one. I can admire them as aesthetic pieces of beauty. The up and down, rolling around nature of the roller coaster can be very attractive, especially if you're standing on the ground, peering up at it from a great height. I've said height 3 times.
Jonathan, you challenge.
Well, he did say height quite a lot. And also, you can't peer up on a roller coaster from a great height, can you? I mean,
I thought I was on the ground peering up.
If you're on the ground, you can peer up.
But you're not peering up from a great height. You're peering up from no height whatsoever.
Oh, you're going to be difficult, aren't you?
I'm pedantic, yes.
Yeah, yes, right.
Your pedantry has been noticed.
I feel I stepped in too quickly.
No. It was a correct challenge.
Yeah.
And you have 41 seconds still available. You tell us something about why I hate roller coasters, starting now.
I wish I could, but I love them. Is that a...
Why are you challenged?
Deviation.
You're absolutely correct, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's why I hate roller coasters, and you said you love them.
But, Nicholas, I can't sit here and lie.
I think within the rules of Just a Minute, I have to be fair to Alun and say, yes, it's why I hate roller coasters, and you said you love them.
I'm not disputing.
Right, OK. So, Alun, a point to you for a correct challenge, and you have 38 seconds. Why I hate roller coasters, starting now.
I hate roller coasters because people continually compare them to life. Oh, it's like a roller coaster. How? Because it's full of ups and downs, or because it's tedious and you're standing there waiting to possibly die? Is that really what a life is like, or even a roller coaster?
Paul challenge.
There's a bit of a hesitation there.
Yes, there was, yes. Right. So, Paul, you have the subject back again. You have 20 seconds available. Why I hate roller coasters, starting now.
I was recently staying at a hotel in Blackpool, and round the back was this massive roller coaster, and I was trying to get to sleep in the afternoon. Not only was it situated at the rear of the place I was staying in, but also it came in through the window. Through the window.
Liza, you challenge.
Well, there was a little hesitation over place.
Yes, and now I'm going to hear from all of you on this first round. Wow. So, Liza, with a point to you, and you've got him with 10 seconds to go. Why I hate roller coasters, starting now.
If you've ever been on a roller coaster with my brother, you'll understand completely why I hate roller coasters, because he sits on one side of the booth and pushes you out as you get to the top bit and makes you...
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. On this occasion, it was Liza Tarbuck, and so she's got 2 points in the round. They've all got 1. It's even. Alun, would like you to begin the next round, and the subject now is assessing the strength of a chili. Well, the audience seem to enjoy it, but you tell us something about the subject. 60 seconds starting now.
Assessing the strength of a chili can be done many ways. Most people favour a little nibble from the end of said vegetable or spice. I prefer the suppository technique. I feel that there's absolutely no doubt that you've got a fiery one then, and let's face it, all roads lead to Rome.
So, Paul, you challenge first.
Hesitation.
Yeah, we call that hesitation. Paul, there are 42 seconds available. Assessing the strength of a chili, starting now.
Indian arm wrestling is a very good way to establish the strength of a chili. It may look powerful, but what actually is it like underneath its skin? Red, sure, but does that redness go all the way through to its heart? Does it have the courage of a lion, a panther locked in raspberry jam? No, nobody does. A chili can be judged to be extremely strong if you see that its hue is as...
Liza, you challenge
I'm not sure that I know what you're talking about.
I've no idea. I stopped listening in 1968.
I don't know what he's talking about either. So
the strength of the
call
chili
that
is down to...
deviation. Right.
Oh.
So, Liza, you've got in with another point and the subject, and there are 19 seconds available. Assessing the strength of a chili, starting now.
I think it's always interesting when you are chopping chilies that you can assess them afterwards when you mistakenly just scratch your eye or go to the loo and wipe your bum. And there you are, stuck for quite a tingly moment thinking, I might have put a few too many in that chili. I'm not quite...
All challenge.
This can't be the only way of assessing the strength of This programme's all heard all around the world. Culinary tips are noted down.
Paul, I think we could say she was giving you one way of assessing the strength of a chili.
Yeah.
It's her particular way.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. There may be other ways.
There may be other ways.
So,
We haven't heard about them, but there may be others.
Well, Alun's given us one or two.
Well, they've been the same as hers. Shove it up anyway. Just thought taste buds should be a first option. Especially if you've got guests round, you know.
Oh, I'm almost tempted to give you a bonus point for all that. Lisa, an incorrect challenge.
Oh, okay.
So, no, because that was your opinion.
Yeah.
4 seconds are still available. Assessing the strength of a chili starting now.
When my dog ate a chili once, all I can tell you is that it was...
So Liza Tarbuck was again speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point and others in the round, and she has increased her lead at the end of the round. And Jonathan will be with you to begin. So this is something I think you might know a little bit about. The subject is interview techniques.
Okay.
And you have 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
By interview technique, I imagine you mean adults talking to each other in front of a crowd for their delight or entertainment, or indeed to winkle out some hitherto unknown fact about the subject or indeed victim. It's not something I believe you are born with. I think you can learn by studying the masters. Like, for example, Sir Michael Parkinson, who would introduce the guest and then make them sit down and feel comfortable using that warm, avuncular Barnsley voice of his, and then wham, hit him in the side of the face with a killer question. It was the classic iron hand in the velvet glove. Then, of course, you have Piers Morgan, the root of all evil, and another route towards interviewing.
Alun, you challenged.
Well, I think there was root and roots.
Yeah, but two different words. Root with a U, root with a double O.
But you pronounce them both the same, root. But I tell you what, Jonathan, as you haven't played the game before... No, I'm going to be very generous here. As you haven't played the game before, I'm going to say to you, right, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Okay. You have 24 seconds still. Tell us more about interview techniques starting now.
Piers Morgan, who bangs away...
Paul, you challenge first.
Any mention of Piers Morgan is probably too much, but that was repetitious.
That was repetition.
Yes.
Lisa, you challenged as well. Yes,
Morgan
right.
again.
Going to mention him. So that's a correct challenge. And 22 seconds are still available. Paul, interview techniques starting now.
When I worked on Room 10 Ditto, I remember thinking to myself that one of the reasons behind getting the guests on the show was to interview them about their life and their dislikes. And the technique that I would use when talking to these celebrity guests was to listen carefully to their answers and then select a question which would be a follow-up just based on what they'd said, perhaps.
So Paul Merton then speaking as a whistle weighing gained that extra point. He's moved forward. He's one behind our leader, Liza Tarbuck, and then Jonathan Ross and Alun Cochrane in that order. And Liza, we're with you to begin, and the subject is what I keep in my pockets. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Well, what's interesting is that I'm wearing an all-in-one leather jumpsuit, and consequently the pockets are quite tight, and I can only keep a credit card on me this evening. But as a rule, I like to keep several things in my pocket, including a couple of pellets of chewing gum, a few dog bags, because I think they're very useful items for holding anything from conkers to water. And in the olden days, when you used to have a pig in a poke, it comes from the need for women to have button-on pockets that were cause celebs within the family, perhaps embroidered by the aunties, uncles and grandparents. And sometimes, if there was... It was quite interesting, wasn't it? All true. Except for the leather all-in-one.
Well, you went for 41 seconds. But, Jonathan, you challenge first. And you've got him with 19 seconds to go. What I keep in my pockets, starting now.
What don't I keep in my pockets might be a better question. They're like the tar... What did I do?
You've done the same thing you did at the beginning.
What did I do?
Well, the first subject was why I hate roller coasters. And you said why I love roller coasters.
Well, I know I just said I was going to talk about what I keep in them, and I was just getting there in a roundabout way.
I know what you were doing, but it's not a clever way to do it in just a minute.
You know what?
Because they're just waiting to pounce, you see.
Can I leave and come back another week with some preparation under my belt?
I did pounce, but more because I thought he was going to talk about what he doesn't keep in his pockets, which is deviation.
That's how he began. What I don't keep in my pockets. Listen, I gave you the benefit of the doubt last time, Jonathan. I don't think I can do it twice.
No,
so, Alan, a correct challenge to you. 16 seconds. What I keep in my pockets, starting now.
What I keep in my pockets usually lives in a shirt pocket on my left chest, until recently when I boarded a roller coaster, and it all tipped out on the loop-de-circle that I went on. And I don't really carry a lot whilst performing as a stand-up comic, but
Alun Cochrane was then speaking as a whistle when gained the extra point. He's moved up. He's equal with Jonathan Ross in third place. Behind 1 point behind Paul, 2 points behind Liza. Tarbuck who's in the lead. And Alun Cochrane, it's your turn to begin. The subject is blue suede shoes. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
Blue Suede Shoes was a hit for the artist Elvis Presley, but were also a terrible choice for when he and I went fell running in the Lake District. He kept slipping, and I had to say, "Are you okay?" And he would reply, "Uh-huh." And I really enjoyed our day together. It was also a song done by Eddie Cochrane, my great uncle, who for some reason spelled his surname different from mine. He seemed keen to not bother with the E, whereas I go for C-O and then the letter at the start again, H-R-A-N, and then I do use the fifth letter of the alphabet to close out.
A poor challenge.
We may have drifted slightly from blue suede shoes.
I think we have. We got onto your name and your ancestry.
Well,
and your...
We're actually discussing my uncle, Eddie Cochrane, who sang Blue Suede Shoes, so I thought it was in keeping with the subject on the card. But
wasn't it Carl Perkins that did blue suede shoes?
I think he might have wrote it, but my uncle never mentioned that.
No.
You did start off that way, but you got well away from blue suede shoes after a bit, talking about your ancestry. No wonder, once you got onto your ancestors, you got carried away. And
I do miss my uncle.
Yeah. Were you again when he died?
Oh, it's too painful to remember, yes. Uncle Eddie, we called him.
Uncle Eddie, yeah.
So, Paul, you've got in with a point, of course, and 23 seconds on blue suede shoes, starting now.
It was very much part of the wardrobe of the teddy boy, a movement that came to prominence in the 1950s with their quiffed back hair and Edwardian-style clothes. Blue suede shoes. The crepes were thick, the laces were long and silky, and the actual material that the shoe was made of, the suede, although it could be blue, there were many other colours. We think of red, yellow, but blue...
So Paul Merton speaking as the whistle when gained another point, and he's now just ahead of Liza Tarbuck in that order, followed by Jonathan Ross and Alun Cochrane equally in third place. Jonathan, we're back with you to begin, and the subject we've thought of for you now is smoke and mirrors.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I won't start by saying I don't know anything about it. I've learned that much.
Yes. Okay. So our 60 seconds, if you need it, starting now.
Smoke and mirrors is commonly held as a phrase to refer to magic tricks, to the act of conjuration, to illusions, when a magician or another professional shows an audience something and promises to complete a task impossible in their eyes, and then seems to have done that very thing, and then reveals that nothing of the sort occurred. In show business, that seems to be okay. In real life, not so much. Case in point, my wife last night, when I told her before bed I had indeed taken the bins out, this morning when she discovered I had been too lazy, she wasn't thrilled as she would have been if I'd have been a professional. Even if I'd have stood in front and said, "Hey presto, alakazam," the sight of those particular receptacles...
Very good. You went for 40 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh. And for a first-time player, that is amazing. Paul, what was your challenge?
Well, it was hesitation, but as a word of advice, Jonathan, you can slow down.
Yes, you're giving yourself...
I was just very excited.
Breathe.
Right. So, what is the challenge?
Well, I was going to say hesitation.
Well, I think that the pace he was going, that wasn't hesitation.
No.
Yeah, right.
He was going very fast, yes.
We will. So we give you the benefit of the doubt, Jonathan. And generosity from Paul. And take Paul's advice, please. And you've got a point, of course. And 20 seconds are still available. Smoke and mirrors starting now.
Smoke and mirrors can mean something very different. What happened?
You're taking the piss now.
That's my...
Do normal.
That's my telephone voice, I'll have you know.
There isn't, to be fair to Paul. Give Paul a bonus point for that interruption. We loved it. But you get a point for being interrupted, and you still have 16 seconds. And try and find a normal pace.
Yeah.
I'm so self-conscious now, I don't even know how I speak.
No. Well, just do it naturally. Right, smoke and mirrors, Jonathan, starting now.
Smoke and mirrors can mean other things. When I was growing up in East London, S and M referred to something altogether very different, by which I mean we used to, as a hobby, try and learn to inhale tobacco like the ill-informed adults did round the back of the school near the bike shed, and there was a shiny, reflective...
So Jonathan Ross was then speaking as the whistle went and got the extra point for speaking at that moment and has moved forward, and he's in second place, one ahead of Liza Tarbuck and 2 or 3 ahead of Alun Cochrane. And Liza, it's your turn to begin, and the subject now, chillaxing. Tell us something about it. There's nothing funny in that. It's a one word that a lot of youngsters use these days. So, chillaxing, Lisa, 60 seconds starting now.
Thanks very much. I'll take that subject. A few taps slapping me. Slapping. Oh, I was trying to learn some patois.
Who from? Like a Chelsea pensioner?
Patio, perhaps.
So, Jonathan, you got in there first. So, chillax a little, and then talk about chillaxing, starting now.
Chillaxing is a favourite phrase of the young, who are ill-informed about the proper way to speak, of course. Lol, ruffle, copter, so...
All the challenge.
You ever repetition of ruffle or something?
Well, it was a whole different word. Ruffle copter is a whole different word. It's the copter that you fly to a ruffle in.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the explanation.
That's because you're not down with the kids. Blam! Yeah. You don't know that tap.
Slap me, B.
Right. Well, I don't know how to judge on this one. Because
I wouldn't understand it if you did.
I know.
Have I become the voice of youth on this?
So, Alan, help me. Was his challenge correct or not?
I don't know for sure, but I think maybe not.
So,
but
Jonathan, an incorrect challenge. You have a point for that. You have 47 seconds. You continue on chillaxing, starting now.
I wonder if these words are designed by the young merely to confuse those...
Paul challenge.
A repetition of by the young.
Yeah, you did mention the young before.
I have nothing to say back your way.
Yes.
Do you want me to vote on that challenge, or are we happy with that?
No, Alan, I may look old, but I can cope with that. Paul, the correct challenge. You have 43 seconds still available. Chillaxing starting now.
Chopping wood in winter is tremendously good exercise for the heart and generally for the system. You take your axe down to the forest once the temperature has reached a certain degree and you start swinging against the tree. The wood will fall underneath the weight of your blade, and perhaps if you are feeling a little bit cold at this point, you could just wrap yourself up with a nice bit of sheep wool that you've cut from a passing animal and drape across your shoulder. Chillaxing, for those of you slightly slower than the rest of us, is a combination of relaxing at night time with your teenage friends, discussing old reruns of 3 Men and a Boat starring Greyfriars Jones, and wondering whatever happened to Mr. Pastry reruns.
So Paul Merton was again squeaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point. And he's increased his lead at the end of that round, ahead of Jonathan Ross, who's in second place, then Liza Tarbuck, and then Alun Cochrane in that order. And Paul, we're back with you to begin. And the subject is, an interesting one, my small role in the history of Lawrence of Arabia. I'll write it down. It's a long subject. I'll give you a moment to think about it. My small role in the history of Lawrence of Arabia. 60 seconds starting now.
Well, I went to see the film when it was re-released in the mid-1960s, and my 5 bob probably contributed a small amount to the budget. Several thousand grains of sand, I imagine. But without my contribution and other members of the audience throughout the world, it would have been called Lawrence of Arabia in a car park. So we paid to see this historical drama unfold upon the screen. We knew that David Lean, the director, had directed many films before. Jonathan will remember them as well as I won't go through the list now because it would be slight deviation, because we're concentrating on his opus, Lawrence of Arabia. Noel Coward, upon seeing Peter O'Toole in the role...
Jonathan, you're challenging.
It's just a bit too plummy for my taste right now. It just isn't you, Paul. I'm sorry.
So what's your challenge within the rules?
It's not really a challenge. I'm just a little bit disappointed.
Disappointed about what?
He's such a normally such a straight talking kind of guy. When he gets all plummy and waving his arm in the air and talking about...
We enjoyed your interruption, so we give you a bonus point for that. But Paul was interrupted, so he gets a point for that. Keeps the subject. 22 seconds. My small role in the history of Lawrence of Arabia. Starting now.
More like Florence of Arabia, said the erstwhile playwright of the 1920s. That's the trouble with anecdotes when they're split in the middle.
Liza challenge.
Repetition of 19 from 1960.
You do the
19. Yes.
Liza Tarbuck was listening well. Correct challenge. 16 seconds are available, Liza. Do you tell us something about my small role in the history of Lawrence of Arabia, starting now?
I went to see a documentary about the history of Lawrence of Arabia, and I decided...
Alun challenge.
She's just speaking a bit too plummy for my life.
Yes, it's annoying, isn't it?
Alun, we enjoyed your interruption. Give him a bonus point for that. Lisa, you were interrupted, and you have the subject still. And 12 seconds, my small role in the history of Lawrence of Arabia, starting now.
So I went and got myself a soft bap, and inside it I put some egg mayonnaise, and I thought I'll take that in.
Jonathan challenge.
Surely a deviation. I've seen that movie many times. There are no bats.
She's got an answer. She's got an answer.
Yeah, root and root.
Yes.
Roll.
Oh. Yeah, but what's it got to do with the history of Lawrence of Arabia?
I'm taking an egg mayonnaise roll, so I really thoroughly enjoyed the documentary. I'm hungry.
She went to see a documentary about Lawrence of Arabia. She thought, well, that'd be a bit sandy. I need something to eat.
Yeah.
So she took along an egg
something
bat.
moist to eat.
She wanted something moist to eat.
Lisa, they're all justifying the fact that you had this small role, and you're... But we'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say, you keep the subject, 6 seconds, my small role in the history of Lawrence of Arabia, starting now.
I cannot tell you how delicious it was to watch that man and his beautiful blue eyes move across the screen on a camel.
So, Liza Tarbuck gained that extra point for speaking as the whistle went, has moved forward. She's equal with Jonathan Ross in second place. And they're just ahead of Alun Cochrane. But they're both they're all a few points behind Paul Merton, who's still in the lead. And we're moving into the final round.
The quickening.
Well, I thought we'd get more than that, actually. Anyway, the final round. And... Oh, you are lovely.
You're taking the piss. That guy there is too plummy for me.
Alun Cochrane, it's your turn to begin. And the subject we've got now is doing a good turn. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
Doing a good turn is something I found very difficult during my years at ballet school. I often would spin and land flat on my face, and actually I eventually decided to leave and become a Samaritan because I thought that would be a better place to do a good turn. And in fact, it is. When people phone up, they can sound often very, very upset. Oh yeah. It wasn't even a subtle repetition, that one. right next to each other, weren't they?
Paul, your challenge, please.
Repetition or very?
Yes. Paul, the subject is doing a good turn. There are 37 seconds available, starting now.
I sometimes dream of impersonating Max Miller, getting on his colourful floral costume with a funny hat and walking out into an audience and saying, I went home the other night, the wife says to me, here, I hear the milkman's made love to every woman in this street bar one. And she said, I bet that stuck-up cow at number 54. As I glide down the Thames and looking at Blackfriars Bridge, I noticed the silhouette of London grasping itself towards me. A boatman with a sad look in his eye swims towards my vessel. I search my pocket for doubloons, but I realise I have none. And as I push his head beneath the turbulent tide, I suddenly...
Well, Jonathan, you've challenged.
He's drunk. Are you drunk? Is that allowed? Is it okay to be drunk?
I forgot what the subject was. Doing a good turn. It definitely wasn't that, was it?
My challenge was I thought he was drunk.
I think we can say the subject is doing a good turn.
Yeah.
I don't think we've established that he was doing any bloody turns at all.
Not at all.
So, Jonathan, you've got a point for a correct challenge.
Yeah.
Brace yourself. You have 1 second to go.
I'm not going to start with the words I don't. Okay?
And you start now. For the challenge. Deviation.
He didn't start with the words I don't.
A lovely challenge, but it was an incorrect challenge, so you haven't spoken, but you've got another point. And you have a third of a second to say, doing a good turn, starting now.
Every good turn...
So Jonathan Ross speaks at the whistle and gained that extra point. And the final situation is Alun Cochrane, who gives such great value, but he finished in 4th place. Liza Tarbuck, who was in the lead for a time, she was a point or two behind Jonathan Ross, our first-time player of the game, and he was only 1 point behind our leader, Paul Merton. So, Paul, we do say you are the winner this week. So, it only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game. Paul Merton, Alun Cochrane, Jonathan Ross and Liza Tarbuck. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score and blown her whistle so delicately when the 60 seconds elapsed. We thank Katie Tyrrell, our producer. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're grateful to this lovely audience here who've cheered us on our way magnificently. From them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, tune in again at the same time when we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons. And as the minute waltz fades away once more, it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting personalities who can display their talent and their skill with words and language as they try and speak on the subject that I give them. And they try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And those 4 are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Sue Perkins, and seated on my left, Gyles Brandreth and Frank Skinner. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me sits Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me keep the score. She'll blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the BBC tent at Potter Row in Edinburgh during the festival. And we have a typical, excited, animated festival audience just ready and dying for us to get started. So let's begin the show with Paul Merton. And what better? Fireworks. What a wonderful subject to start with. Paul, 60 seconds if you need it. Fireworks starting now.
I remember the fireworks of my youth with great pleasure. I don't remember public displays much, but we would buy a small selection of fireworks, whiz-bangs, jumping jacks, that type of thing. Schoolyard chants. Light up the fire. No, light up the sky. No, I've said I've light up 3 times.
Repetition of light.
Yeah.
So, still a
love
correct
Sky.
challenge. So you get a point for that. There are still 45 seconds available. Fireworks starting now.
I too, like Paul, think of fireworks and remember my childhood. Holding a nigh-on exploding baked potato in one hand and a Catherine wheel in the other, I danced with death throughout my entire teenage years in Croydon, as those who worked for the emergency and accident department at Mayday Hospital will fondly remember. Nothing excites the human...
Frank, challenge.
Repetition of remember?
Oh, yes, right at the beginning. You said remember, didn't you? Frank Skinner, who's never played the game before, spotted that. The audience didn't, because they went, ooh. So, Frank, you have your first point. You have 24 seconds if you want it, and the subject is fireworks starting now.
For some strange reason, I have always found fireworks to be incredibly hilarious. Whenever I attend firework displays, at every whiz and bang, I always burst into laughter. I was once with Brian Ferry, the much-loved balladeer, at an ITV anniversary celebration, and a great number of fireworks were released, at which point I...
Gyles, you've challenged.
Hesitation.
I'm afraid so. And you've got in with 2 seconds to go.
Oh, that's Gyles all over, that is all. I've seen him do it before, haven't you? I've seen him do it.
Which ancestor is that you're taking?
I've no idea.
No. So, unfortunately, Frank, you didn't quite keep going for the 60 seconds. Gyles, you've got 2 seconds on fireworks, starting now.
I offer to show Sue my cupcakes.
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Giles Brandreth. He's in the lead at the end of that round. Frank and Sue have scored. Paul is still on 0. And Sue Perkins, we'd like you to begin the next round. Oh, a topical subject. My festival guide. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
My festival guide is a Sherpa called Alainagararuya, which means in Nepalese, expert at avoiding promotional literature. And we traverse the Royal Mile and the cobbles. He so cleverly moves me out of the way as an avalanche of paper displaying excitables such as a post-feminist interpretation of Equus tries to hit us in the face. It's extremely important when coming to this fair city that you have a festival guide. How else can you possibly hope to navigate through the extraordinary chaos and brilliance this, the greatest arts festival in the world, provides us with? So, equipped with nothing but a small leaflet and a sense of smell, I always try and find something weird and unusual, often in a cave. It seems to be subterranean theatrical experience's greatest hotspot. Where else can you see a stalactite of somebody else's sweat falling on you?
It doesn't often happen. But when you've got the sort of clarity of thought that Sue possesses, she kept going for the full 60 seconds, without interruption, without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And so she gets a point for speaking as the whistle went, and also one for not being interrupted. And she's taken the lead, one ahead of Gyles. And Frank, we'd like you to begin the next round. This must have been chosen for you. I don't know why, but you can tell us. It's playing the ukulele. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
I have been playing the ukulele for some 7 years. It is an instrument I love and one that I am proud to be associated with when I carry a ukulele down the street. I like the fact that people stare at me admiringly. It's like when one sees someone with a bassoon or a euphonium. Not, however, like when you see someone with a guitar.
Oh, yeah, Sue challenge.
Repetition of someone.
Someone, too many someones, yes. But you did very well. You kept going for 39 seconds. No, there's 39 seconds left, I'm sorry, the other round.
Oh, you build me up and then you break me down.
So 21 seconds is pretty good in this game, yeah?
I'm woefully out of my depth, Nicholas, but
No, you're not. You're a just-a-minute virgin, and that means that...
Don't initiate him, Nicholas.
Nicholas, you said you'd behave, you really must.
You mean
the old shut-up lines are coming out.
It's a very different BBC now.
Yeah.
So, Sue, you challenge first, right? We know with repetition, and there are 39 seconds available. Playing the ukulele, starting now.
I only ever play the ukulele when I'm cleaning windows, which is ironic because he played a banjo, and I've said play so many times.
And Frank, challenge.
Deviation. George Formby did not play a banjo.
No, he played the ukulele, didn't he?
He played the banjolele, which is a ukulele with a banjo resonator.
What kind
Oh!
A banjolele?
Yes. To say that he played the banjo is a...
What kind of weird mutant instrument is a banjolele?
Oh, there's another one. You've got a cross between a piano and a rhino.
No. So I say to you, Frank, if you lose it, you can always get it back again, as you did, like that, on your subject. And you've got a point for a correct challenge. And there are 31 seconds available. Playing the ukulele, starting now.
The secret of playing the ukulele is to play regularly.
Gyles, challenge.
Repetition of play.
Yes,
no, playing. And then
playing's on the card. You can say
Earlier.
playing again, but you can't say play again.
Said play earlier.
You said play earlier.
The euphonium.
You said the word about play.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm in a position to
It's
really
historic.
fight this. I feel a bit like... Do you remember that moment on News 24 when they accidentally interviewed a cab driver about technology? I feel like that man.
You're doing very well.
He never goes, Frank.
For a first-time player of the game, you are doing extremely well.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Giles, correct challenge. A point to you. 27 seconds available, starting now.
I do not wish to sound hostile or bitter, but when my daughter married a professional ukulele player, I was disappointed. And coming to give the speech as the father of the bride, I told the audience how wretched I was feeling on that occasion. A banker had been available, a solicitor, indeed, a minor member of the royal family. But she chose instead...
Whoa. I know you're getting carried away.
We've strayed from playing the ukulele to Giles's bitter disappointment that his daughter didn't marry somebody better.
Yes, we have. I think
Which is
that's
off the
deviation.
subject, isn't it?
I think we've got off the subject.
Yes.
I know you wanted her to marry... I know you wanted her to marry a ukulele player, but it didn't work out. Or she
Certainly
didn't.
doesn't seem to have worked out, does it, Nicholas?
No.
Spot on.
No, I think, listen, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and if I can redress the balance sometime later, Giles, I will.
That's what I was hoping for, Nicholas.
So, Paul, the correct challenge. There are 9 seconds still available. Playing the ukulele, starting now.
It's an appealing instrument to try and learn because there are basically 4 strings on the simplest of ukuleles, a bit like a guitar, but if you once master it, you can hang...
So, Paul Merton, Speaker of the Whistle Wind, gained the extra point. He's now equal in third place with Frank Skinner. Then it's Gyles is 1 point behind our leader, Sue Perkins. And Gyles, it's your turn to begin. The subject now, high street coffee shops. They're everywhere, aren't they? Would you talk on the subject, Gyles? 60 seconds if you want it, starting now.
They are indeed everywhere, Nicholas. In fact, in the high street where I...
Frank, challenge.
Deviation. Surely they are by definition only on the high street.
I don't think he was deviating from the subject. They are indeed everywhere.
High street coffee shops cannot be everywhere, can they?
What a clever, intelligent subtle thought.
I knew you'd come with me eventually if I battered at the door.
No. That's why we asked you on the show, because
Thank
of
you.
your astute intellectual abilities. And Frank, you've got it. I'm
Thank
giving
you,
it to you.
Nicholas.
You've got another point, and you have 57 seconds.
Oh, have I that much? I'll bet I haven't.
57 seconds. High street coffee shops, starting now.
Sorry.
Frank, you've challenged yourself.
Yes, sorry, I got so confused that I pressed my button.
Was it for hesitation?
It was the
correct challenge.
fear.
Come on.
It was fear.
I was trying to help you there.
So do I
give
get
you
a point and then I continue?
If you played along with me, yes, but it's a bit late now.
I'm sorry, it was an accident.
So what was your challenge?
I'll be honest with you, I've made a terrible fool of myself. I didn't mean. I got so excited I pressed the buzzer out of excitement.
If you'd said hesitation, I'd have agreed and given you a point. I think we'll say no points.
Okay.
And you carried on with 56 seconds on high street coffee shops.
That's the second killed, at least.
Although, to to be honest, it seems longer.
High street coffee shops, Frank, starting now.
I very much disapprove of high street coffee shops because they are cool, and this is a thing I cannot tolerate. I also think that coffee has a seediness about it. If you say to someone, would you like to come for a coffee, you know that something dubious and underhand is about to take place. If you say, would you like... I'm sorry.
What kind of world do you live in?
Did you challenge me on my world view?
I have to say, yes, I merely challenged.
Darling, I thought you were challenged for the repetition of coffee shops, which he did. So it's an incorrect challenge. You keep the subject, Frank, and there are 36 seconds available. High street coffee shops starting now.
What I particularly like about high street coffee shops...
Gyles said.
Repetition of like following repetition of think.
Yeah. You did say like before, what you liked about coffee shops.
Yeah.
So you repeated that. High street coffee shops is a subject.
Yes.
So, Gyles, at last you got back in again.
I imagine that's the face you used to pull in Parliament when a vote snuck through. You gang of naughty little schoolboys.
So, Gyles, 34 seconds available with you. Another point, of course, high street coffee shops starting now.
At the top of the high street where I live is a sign outside the coffee shop saying, last coffee shop for 20 yards. I am spoilt for choice in my domestic arrangements, but going out, I prefer the coffee shop because I cannot mention the commercial.
Sue challenge.
Hesitation.
That was a hesitation.
What?
Yes. Indeed, my perfect enunciating friend.
It was a definite hesitation,
If it
Gyles.
was, you say so, Nicholas. Go on.
Well, I do say so. That's my job to adjudicate.
I agree with you.
Are you agreeing now? I
Don't
think?
fight, daddies. I like saying that. It was really sinister.
Yes. Sue,
Yes.
correct challenge. And there are 19 seconds still available. High street coffee shops starting now.
There simply aren't enough for my liking. What I like to do is drown...
Gyles challenge.
Like this time and like a little bit earlier.
Yes?
I haven't had the subject before.
Yes, you did. Yes, she did.
Where did you have it?
Briefly,
Never.
very briefly,
I've
when
never-
she interrupted Frank.
Well, I didn't have it. I wasn't given it. I merely made a point about Frank's worldview, was quite frankly
Yes.
correctly
Oh,
overruled.
you're right. You said I don't like your worldview.
So, incorrect challenge,
Yes.
Gyles. Sue has another point, and she has 15 seconds. High street coffee shops starting now.
I'd like the rise of the tea shop.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, now it is a repetition.
Is there a bonus for the gift of foresight?
No, you just get a point.
You tell me.
You just get a point for a correct challenge, Gyles. So, 13 seconds available. High street coffee shops starting now.
There is a coffee shop named after a character in Moby Dick that has an interesting policy with regard to taxation. I went there once with Jimmy Carr. We shared a couple of very amusing double espressos followed by a macchiato. Oh my, I like a triple shot myself.
So, Gyles Brandreth, who then speak as a whistle win, gained that extra point. He's now gone ahead and he's joined Sue Perkins in the lead. They're just ahead of Frank Skinner and Paul Merton in that order. And Paul, we want you to begin the next round. And this is an interesting subject. The superstition I always observe. 60 seconds if you want it, starting now.
I don't believe in superstitions. I think they're unlucky.
I've never heard of a person milk an audience before like that. So you challenge first, Sue?
Hesitation.
Hesitation,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
And there are still 58 seconds available here. The superstition I always observe, starting now.
I am deeply superstitious. So much so I have trained my black cat to permanently walk around ladders, for fear it too will be cursed. I find it's really interesting to base one's entire worldview on mumbo-jumbo created to make us frightened. Just as a thought experiment. Why else would superstition exist, other than to create boundaries, which the more
enterprising and dynamic of us would push aside in order to find life such an enjoyable and expansive experience. Witches, for example, can't be trusted. Anybody with a pointy hat, when one knows that the bowler is in vogue right now, should be cast aside and everything they say just put asunder. I also like, having been brought up a Catholic, the notion that people you've never met and no idea as to whether they exist or not should in some way determine how the focus of your life goes. Now, other
You challenge.
I'm actually glad.
Why?
Could you not? There was this running on empty there. The tank
I know,
was...
but you only had half a second to go.
It's because I said Macbeth before I went on.
So, Paul, your challenge.
Well, it's hesitation.
Yes, I'm afraid it was, alas, but it's a correct challenge, and within the rules of just a minute, I have to give it to Paul. A point to Paul, and half a second to go. The superstition I always observe, starting now.
Never kiss the Pope on a Friday.
So Paul Merton within 3 to the whistle went and has moved forward with that extra point. He's one ahead of Frank Skinner. He's one behind Gyles Brandreth, and he's one behind Sue Perkins. It's all very close, if you're interested in the points. What I say is it's the contributions which are more important. Right, Frank, we're back with you to begin. And the subject is how to win an argument. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
My girlfriend has a very interesting method of winning an argument, in that whatever I complain about, she says, you've been in a very strange mood just lately. This means that everything I say is undermined completely, and a result of my strange depression. I've said strange, but you let me off with it. You didn't.
No, you didn't. Don't let it yourself, darling boy, because often they can be generous and let you go.
Yes.
Right. So, Gyles, you challenge first.
Yes, I'd like to be generous and let him go.
You didn't. You challenged.
I challenged him in order to say that. I wanted to appear generous, but still to be given the point.
So you're donating that point.
Repetition is generous.
Are you donating your point to... This has never happened before, to Frank Skinner.
I'm donating my point to Frank.
Oh, right.
Gyles, I don't know what to say. I'm going to vote Conservative forevermore as a thank you.
So, Frank, you've got another point, and you have 45 seconds on how to win an argument starting now.
I always like to get in little bon mots and fancy one-liners when I'm arguing. I once fell out with the young lady I was involved with, and she claimed that we had nothing in common. Oh, I said, we are both very old.
Now, that's interesting. Two lights came on together. It's never happened before with this little machine in front of me. So who do I give the benefit of the doubt? Who's owing a benefit?
Oh.
Sue, probably. Gyles had his benefit early, didn't you?
I did have my benefit.
He had his benefit early.
Oh, yes.
Sue, you have the benefit of the doubt. You have how to win an argument. 30 seconds starting now.
I find that frothing in the mouth and gesticulating wildly will silence pretty much any argument. Either that or randomly battering your head against a surface and screaming in a made-up language. All these things can backfire hugely if you find yourself in a ward, as I did once. But the important thing to remember is it's a two-way game. So often you can get involved in your own particular strand of the argument. Sometimes empathy is a key way of finding a solution to the problem. Not that I've ever used it. Why would you? I like the sound of my own voice.
Right, so Sue Perkins was then speaking as a whistle went, gained that extra point, and has taken the lead again ahead of Gyles Brandreth by 1 point, and she's a few ahead of Paul Merton and Frank Skinner in that order. And I've just heard we're into the final round. Oh. And 1 point separates them all in descending order. Sue Perkins, Gyles Brandreth, and then Frank Skinner and Paul Merton equal in third place. Only 1 point's difference. Isn't it exciting? I'm wicked aware and build up enthusiasm out of nothing. Right. Gyles, we're back with you to begin. A lovely topical subject for Edinburgh. Greyfriars Bobby. Do you know anything about that character, that dog? 60 seconds starting now.
I do know something about the Greyfriars, Bobby, you are thinking about, Nicholas, because we are indeed here in Edinburgh. But because of the referendum being in the offing, I'm going to play safe and talk about Greyfriars, Bobby, from the Isle of Thanet in Kent. This is a policeman that attended a school called Greyfriars, invented by the late, great Frank Richards, who created Billy Bunter, Bob Cherry, and assorted other personalities, including a policeman copper known as Bobby. There is, of course, also...
All challenge.
I'm sorry, I was so bewildered by the rubbish he was talking that I was going to say repetition of Bobby, but it's on the card.
Yeah.
I think repetition of policeman.
No.
It is true, but it's retrospective. I don't know what we've never had one of those before.
I seem to be witnessing quite a lot of firsts.
Yes. So, well, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Thank you.
No, Frank. As Frank's never...
You think the way I was getting the BBC off the hook?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, you nearly put them on the hook by mentioning...
No, not at all, because it may not exist any longer by the time this goes out.
What, Greyfriars Bobby? Do you think that's the first thing that's going to change?
They'll be tearing that down then, will they?
Dog-based monuments will go.
No, Frank, as you've not played the game before, well listened, and there are still 29 seconds available. Tell us something about Greyfriars Bobby, starting now.
Sorry, I did it again, Frank. Sorry, I did it again. It's become a nervous
I know,
tick.
you challenge yourself again. You want to challenge yourself for hesitation?
I challenge...
You say yes, and I get your point, right. Frank, that's a correct challenge.
Thank you very much.
I was trying to lead you into that last time, but you just didn't pick up on it, I'm afraid. But you did this time, so you have a correct challenge of yourself for hesitation. Another point. 28 seconds still available. Greyfriars Bobby. Frank Skinner starting now.
I doubt the loyalty of Greyfriars Bobby because I've always thought that...
Gyles
I'm
challenge.
sorry, deviation. I speak on behalf of the Canine Defence League. I'm so sorry. I know that you're new to the game, but you can't attack this wonderful creature that for 14 years went day after day to the graveside. Of course you can't doubt the
Aren't you a
loyalty
bit
of this
suspicious
dog.
that it was 14 years? I mean, that's a long lifespan.
It was. The poor dog died at the end of it.
Sue, can I explain to you? Somebody adopted him and used to come and feed him every day.
Yeah.
He stayed on the grave, sat there all day.
Oh, I know the story. That
and then
story
someone
makes me
used to
cry.
feed him and keep him alive.
Yeah.
And then she paid for the monument that is not for Greyfriars Bobby.
But Nicholas, there are some doubters that say that they swapped the
Yeah,
dog.
but we don't
like
want to hear...
Frida the tortoise. No, there are. This is awful. Like Frida the tortoise. You know, they just put another tortoise and Tipp-Ex on his back. And then
Greyfriars doppelganger?
This is outrageous.
Absolutely.
So hold on, the interruption is based on my lack of empathy for a dead dog.
Deviation from an understanding of dogs, of Scotland, of the heritage of this great city. I mean, it's appalling, Frank. It's clear that you come from Birmingham, and it's hot.
I'm back to voting Labour again.
I've enjoyed all that so much, I've forgotten who to award the point to now. So, I think Frank, don't you?
Frank's good.
Benefit of the doubt to you, Frank. 23 seconds still available. Greyfriars Bobby starting now.
The owner...
Oh, full challenge.
Hesitation.
I know.
you've got to be, honestly, it's like a hair trigger.
That gap between Nicholas saying now and you speaking is the sort of...
That's the bit.
That's the bit.
So the tip I give to everybody is that when I say and your time starts, take a breath.
I'll do
so
that.
I say
I'll
now
do that
you're
next
off.
time.
So
otherwise, Paul will have time to make a sandwich.
So note your points scored at that moment. Frank, there are 22 seconds on Greyfriars Bobby, and your time starts now.
The owner of Greyfriars Bobby was buried carrying the lead still. That's why he was on the grave. I don't believe the story. I call him Bobby Charlatan. The whole thing was made up. It's a...
Paul challenge.
Bobby Charlatan, didn't he play for Manchester United? Didn't he play for Manchester United?
I think that deserves a bonus point. Give a bonus point to Paul Merton for that. You could have had him, because it was deviation. Because it wasn't true what you just said, Frank.
It didn't happen, Greyfriars Bobby, am I right?
No, of course it happened.
Of course it happened.
It's a real
It's
dog.
a myth. It's been exposed as a myth.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No.
That's like saying shortbread isn't real.
You'll have the audience walking towards us in a moment, if you're careful.
I think that's zombies, Nicholas, not Scots.
So, Paul, 7 seconds. You tell us something about Greyfriars Bobby, starting now.
As I come to Edinburgh every year before I begin my show, I take a little pilgrimage up towards the statue of Greyfriars Bobby, and I say to myself, you were...
So Paul Merton, speak as the whistle went. Let me give you the final situation. Very close. Frank Skinner, who's not played the game before, did extraordinarily well and was equal with Paul Merton in third place. They were just 2 points behind Gyles Brandreth, but 2 points ahead was Sue Perkins. So we say, Sue, you are our winner this week. So it only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Sue Perkins, Gyles Brandreth and Frank Skinner. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score. She blew her whistle with great style. We thank our producer, Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're very grateful to this lovely festival fringe audience here in Edinburgh who've cheered us on our way with true style and aplomb. So from our audience, and from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye, and tune in again at the same time when we play Just a Minute! Yes, welcome to Just a Minute. My name is Nicholas Parsons. And as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world. But also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting personalities. And seated on my right, it's Paul Merton and Sue Perkins. And seated on my left, Gyles Brandreth and Josie Long. Please welcome all 4 of them. And as usual, I'm going to ask them to speak on the subject that I will give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. Beside me sits Trudy Stevens, who's going to help me keep the score, and she'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And this particular edition of Just a Minute is coming from the BBC tent at Potter Row in Edinburgh during the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. And we have a wonderful, excited Festival Fringe audience in. We're all keyed up from seeing all the other shows. There we are. So to begin the show, Gyles, the Commonwealth. Tell us something about the Commonwealth in this show, Gyles, starting now.
We know 2 things about the Queen. One is that she adores her horses. Indeed, as the Duke of Edinburgh says, if it doesn't fart or eat hay, she isn't interested. And the other is her absolute devotion to the Commonwealth, once known as the British Commonwealth, founded in 1931, I think, now encompassing some 53 countries around the globe. The Commonwealth is a warm and glorious organisation that Elizabeth, as I must now call her, for fear of repetition, Lilibet to some, she embraces it and meets people in every continent, saying to them, oh, thank you for being part of my Commonwealth. It's curious, this, because once upon a time in this country we had a Commonwealth led by Oliver Cromwell.
Sue challenge, yes, Sue.
Repetition of country.
Yes, you mentioned the country before.
Excuse me, sir. If you play back the tape, I think you'll find I mentioned 53 countries, and then I came to country.
This glorious country, I thought you said. I might be wrong.
I think you might be.
I think you might be. No, actually...
Gyles, have you had a cappuccino? He's had a cappuccino.
And I've had a couple of Sue's cupcakes. There's a sugar rush going on here. There's a touch of Mary Berry rising.
Can I just make it very clear as a matter of public record that Gyles has been nowhere near my cupcakes?
But BBC, we've hardly got going and there's naughtiness already.
We might need, I don't know, perhaps we need like a Hawkeye for just a minute where we sort of revise the footage.
No. I have just revised it all in my brain. I did a quick recall, and Gyles is actually right. He talked about countries before, and then he said country. He went from the plural to the singular. So, Gyles, you have the benefit of the doubt, but if I can give it back to you at some time... Well, sorry, I couldn't put that better, didn't I?
You've always been a tease.
If I can give you the benefit of the doubt later on...
That sounds worse.
I will now, as Gyles, an incorrect challenge, so you have a point for that. You keep the subject, 18 seconds available, the Commonwealth, starting now.
In 1649, the leader of our nation, who wanted a portrait painted warts and all, founded what he termed the Commonwealth, the idea being the wealth of common people, that the work of each for we the poor.
Sue, challenge.
Repetition of people.
Yes, you did have people before, yes. Well, listen, Sue, so you've got in cleverly with 5 seconds to go. A point for a correct challenge, of course. If the subject is a... What's the matter with you?
That is a really disturbing noise for the listener at home.
Giles is lactating, for those of you.
The pills he took last night were just beginning to work. So, Gyles, in spite of the noise, Sue, correct challenge, and there are 5 seconds to go. The subject is the Commonwealth, starting now.
I don't fart and I don't eat hay, which sadly means the Queen, who runs the beloved Commonwealth, wouldn't fancy me, Mum.
And in this game, whoever is speaking with the whistle goes, gains an extra point. It was Sue Perkins. She's now in the lead, of course, with 2 points there. And Josie, we're back with you to begin. And we've got a subject for you to take now called outdoor swimming. I don't know whether that's one of your activities or hobbies, but you have 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I love outdoor swimming. You never regret a swim, said champion swimmer Thor Olafsson before drowning in an Arctic lake. You name it. Lake. Oh, I knew I'd done it and I couldn't help myself.
I know. Poor you challenge.
Slight hesitation.
Major hesitation.
It was part of my natural... I've no excuse.
That is it. It's the natural way to speak, but unfortunately it doesn't work in just a minute. That's why it's such a difficult game. Right. So, Paul, a correct challenge. 43 seconds available. Outdoor swimming starting now.
As the Titanic finally disappeared from...
Josie, you challenge.
There was a slight hesitation.
Oh, yes, definitely, yes.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. That makes me feel grand.
So you've not only got the subject, Josie, but you've also got the audience with you. As you have 40 seconds still available on outdoor swimming starting now.
Rivers, lakes, ponds, puddles, bit of...
Gyles, you challenge.
That lovely hesitation that is part of her natural way of speaking.
Yeah. I thought it was the image she created of us trying to swim in a puddle.
People imagine
have you actually tried to swim in a puddle, darling?
I've given it a go.
Given it a go. Right. Gyles, incorrect. Outdoor swimming is with you, Gyles. 34 seconds starting now.
I've always believed that swimming is for people who cannot afford a bath. And the idea of outdoor swimming in this part of the world is extraordinary. I have been to Edinburgh in August before. I'm wearing my thermals as a consequence of that experience. And the notion of outdoor swimming here is completely absurd. Apart from the verrucas that one catches when trying to dry one's feet after the plunge, there are all sorts of curious things going on in the water. Pneumonia, we know the P is silent, as indeed it is in swimming pools. An unfortunate consequence of going for outdoor swimming is the...
So, George Brandreth, who's been speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and he's taken the lead ahead of Sue Perkins, Josie Long, and Paul Merton in that order. Sue, we'd like you to begin the next round, and the subject is my bedtime... There's nothing funny in that. But there's plenty of fun in Sue Perkins, right?
You said you wouldn't say. I mean, it's like...
Sue, I wish I hadn't said that. Now I see what the next subject is.
Oh, no.
It's my bedtime treat. So, Sue, 60 seconds if you need them. My bedtime treat starting now.
I'm tucked up in bed in my pyjamas, and I just turn to my left and I say, Nicholas, what box set are we going to enjoy this evening? There's nothing that Mr. Parsons and myself love doing more than cracking open a couple of episodes of Prison Break. Filmed in 2006, it features two brothers. One...
Giles challenge.
Repetition of 2.
There were 2, yes.
Yes.
2006.
Yes.
Fiendish.
Well,
You'll
listen,
never know our bedtime treats now. That's probably a good thing.
Giles, a correct challenge, so my bedtime treat is over to you, and there are 42 seconds available starting now.
I've recently become quite friendly with Russell Brand, and he suggested to me that for the ideal bedtime treat, a young person sent over from Latvia to do some massages before one actually kips down is the best way of enjoying the time before you actually nod off.
Sue, challenge.
It's more of an intervention.
Well, I'm going to give you a bonus point for your comment, but have you got a challenge within the rules of just a minute?
Well, I'm sort of so over-empathising with the poor Latvian, it's very hard for me to follow Giles's trade. I'm going to listen and see how it goes.
So, right, so an incorrect challenge. Giles, you still have the subject. 27 seconds available. My bedtime treat starting now.
My actual bedtime treat is a visit from Sue Perkins, who pops up the stairs with a tray loaded down with cupcakes, which she allows me to have just before I go to bed. The countervalence of this is that I'm on some tablets myself, and therefore the sugar rush that contained within the quality...
Sensation, and I need to stop it for legal reasons.
So, Sue, yeah. There are 8 seconds still available, Sue. My bedtime treat starting now.
Well, Giles doesn't know that his bedtime treat has been laced with a narcoleptic fluid, thus meaning he will slip away into the waters of unconsciousness.
So, Sue Perkins will then speak as the whistle went. Gain that extra point, and she's now equal in the lead with Giles Brandreth, and Paul, Merton and Josie Long are equal in second place, a few points behind. And Paul, we'd like you to begin the next round. Oh, irritating catchphrases. Can you tell us something about those in this game, starting now?
Well, I suppose most catchphrases can be irritating if you hear them time and again. It's because the repetition... What's the matter? What happened then?
No, the audience reacted at your cleverness.
Oh.
And then Sue challenged in the pause.
Yes, a pause which was for comic effect, so I believe within the rules we should allow some largesse
No,
of
we
brilliance.
don't allow, but I'm going to score no points on that and say, Paul, please carry on. And because the audience interrupted and Paul was thrown. They challenged, but I can't award any points to the audience, so...
Right. Prizes.
It's been 47 years.
All right. I award every single one of them a point. And you can take it home with you and put it up on your bedroom wall. I won that in just a minute. Hey! Oh. How childish can you become? Paul, you have 52 seconds on irritating catchphrases starting now.
Heil Hitler was a particularly irritating catchphrase that I used to hear quite a lot, but thank God that stopped in 1945. Meanwhile, catchphrases have always been part of comedy. One thinks of Arthur Askey with his phrases like, hey, thank you, and right before your very eyes, Tommy Cooper, just like that. Comedians over the years have engineered various catchphrases because when the audience hears a certain number of words in an order that they appreciate and heard before, this conjures up comedy. So it's a shorthand cut to getting a laugh. So...
Giles challenge.
A repetition of comedy and appreciate.
Oh. Yes. Comedy's full of it.
Shall we skip the 2-minute silence?
I think they were all mentally replaying some of what you'd said.
Yes.
And they came to the conclusion that Giles's challenge was correct.
Absolutely.
And 25 seconds is available, Giles, on irritating catchphrases starting now.
Am I bothered? Do. What do you think of the show so far? Eat my shorts. These are all phrases with which we are familiar. How do they become irritating? It is, in fact, the repetition, also the personality that is expressing them. Nice to see you. Well, how does that follow? You all know. I'm not able to repeat it, though you might help not help me by doing so. I would allow you that moment of benefit. You can end up with a knighthood if you come up with it.
So, Gyles Brandreth once again was speaking as the whistle when gained that extra point, has increased his lead at the end of the round. And Josie, we're back with you to begin. I don't know whether this has been chosen especially for you. It's quite an erudite subject. Hieronymus Bosch.
Yeah, big fan.
Can you tell us something about Hieronymus Bosch in
Yes.
60 seconds or less, starting now?
Hieronymus Bosch got away with painting things that, in the 15th century, one should not have been able to do. Ecclesiastical powers weren't able to stop him. For example, a nun's head in a fish's mouth, a giant orange collapsing into a... Oh, no! It's so slow. I try so hard, but I just slow down every time. And in my head, I'm like, you're speeding up, don't worry, it's all fine. I'm so...
You were getting a bit slower then, darling, yes, right.
Yeah.
And then you stopped.
It's the adrenaline.
And Paul, you challenged first.
It slows me right down.
Right. I don't know whether you want the subject, but is there yours, Paul?
Hesitation, yes.
Yes. 37
Fair.
seconds. Hieronymus Bosch, starting now.
As I stood in the art gallery at midnight, I heard a sudden whisper behind me. I knew I was alone, but was I? The painting on the wall suddenly featured one less figure than it had the day before. I looked carefully and saw the outline of a farmer who had previously been standing on the hillock, but now could be this... Oh, damn. I was going so well. Wasn't I going well, wasn't I?
And Sue, you challenge me.
Oh, hesitation.
Hesitation, yes, absolutely.
Right, 20 seconds are still available, Sue. Hieronymus Bosch, starting now.
I believe, and Josie is the expert, that Hieronymus...
Josie, challenge.
I thought there was hesitation, but I think I genuinely got overexcited. I'm kind of happy.
Yes, you
So
did
that was hesitation.
Because she said, like... No, it's because she said, like, I believe as, but I thought that she was sort of going, oh, like that. So I sort of almost misheard it.
Yeah. Spot on, Josie. Absolutely.
Thank you. It's nice to have two
Josie, I think you should save your excited...
No, I apologise.
For when you're actually talking. So,
You're very kind and I appreciate it.
we just love having you here, Josie. Right. And there are 17 seconds left. Hieronymus Bosch with you, Sue, starting now.
Hieronymus Bosch painted the triptych, The Garden of Earthly Delight. All I can remember, it features 3 scenes. Heaven, earth as we know it, and hell. Heaven... oh, you utter bug!
You were pausing for effect. And in this game, that's hesitation. Paul, that was your challenge, I'm
Hesitation,
sure.
yes.
5 seconds, you can tell us more about Hieronymus Bosch, starting now.
He came from a large family. His mother and father were known to him, and he also had brothers...
So Paul Merton was then speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point, and he's moving forward. He's still in third place, 1 behind Sue Perkins, who's 1 behind Gyles Brandreth. It's all very close, and Josie's bringing up a very good rear. I wish I hadn't said
Sexist
that.
sport commentary of all time.
Oh dear, there's things which are better left unsaid. Sue Perkins, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is unidentified flying objects. Can you tell us something about those in this game, starting now?
Unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, are noted to be vessels that fly, which no one can provide adequate explanation for. It's a true thing that in a place in Scotland called Linlithgow, I believe, a man found himself nude with ripped shorts, staring at what he believed to be a saucer of flying nature. This was proven to be a water tower when he came to full consciousness, after having spent an inordinately long time in a local tavern. I myself have seen several UFOs, mainly during...
Gyles challenge.
A repetition of UFOs.
Yes.
And it's not on the card, UFO is on the card.
On the card is unidentified flying objects, not UFOs. You have the sympathy of the audience. 23 seconds, Gyles. Unidentified flying objects, starting now.
My wife is not here tonight. She is at the Relate meeting alone. And...
Deviation, she's sitting over there. I was talking to her earlier. Admittedly, she doesn't want to be identified in public, but she is here.
If you think that beautiful young creature I brought tonight is my wife... certainly the person you think is my daughter is my wife. You're absolutely right. I'm so pleased that she is here. I'm quite happy to accept that challenge.
That's very magnanimous of you, considering it's absolutely true. Right. So, Paul, a correct challenge. 19 seconds on unidentified flying objects, starting now.
Ah, the delicious Mrs. Brandreth. We held hands together as we looked out of the window on the 7-4 Ditto jet that we were flying from London to New York. Our eyes met across the aisle. She reached towards the complimentary chocolates. I handed her a packet of...
Gyles' challenge.
She has never reached towards a complimentary chocolate.
Because you won't let her! Let the woman be free!
She doesn't even allow me to steal the soap at the Edinburgh Novotel. This woman is so decent, it's extraordinary. And that slim figure, do you think she'd have that if she was on the chocolates? He doesn't know her, he's just boasting.
You started off by not saying she was here.
You are now suddenly defending someone that you disavowed your knowledge of 5 minutes ago.
The point is, I told Paul's wife my wife wasn't here, and I didn't want to sort of reveal that in public. That's all.
This has gone a bit Jeremy Kyle.
And you're
talking... lie detector.
And a paternity suit. That's what we need. That's what this show needs.
You really are, Giles, talking like a politician now, flanneling your way out of an impossible situation.
If I was talking like a politician, I'd have resigned on my way to the airport and left my wife there with Paul, wouldn't I?
Paul, I think we give you the benefit of the doubt and say there are 4 seconds left on unidentified flying objects, starting now.
18,000 feet above Reykjavik. I observed the ground beneath me and said...
And at the end of that round, Paul Merton speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point, and he's moved forward, and he's now equal with Giles Brandreth in the lead, followed by Sue Perkins and then Josie Long. And I just had a message that we're moving into the final round.
I've just had a message, and Sue's been giving personal protection at the end of the show.
Well, I know we could go on for ages because they're all so entertaining. And you've been so lovely as well. But... there's nothing like clapping yourselves, is there? Let me give you the situation as we move into the final round. Josie Long, who's not played the game very often before, but she's in a very strong 4th place. I mean, she's... No, because there's no winners and losers in this game, it's one. And she's a little way behind Sue Perkins, who I think won last time she was on here in Edinburgh.
I don't remember. That was ages ago, though, wasn't it?
And then in 2nd place is Paul Merton, that is. He's 2 points behind Giles Brandreth. What's going to happen?
Ooh.
As Giles actually begins the next round, it's your turn, Giles. Oh, what a lovely subject. One of my favourite things, rhubarb. Don't know why you laugh, it's gorgeous. I stew a lot of rhubarb, it's my speciality. I've written recipes. I'll give them to you sometime later. Right, Giles, rhubarb. 60 seconds, starting now.
I have long adored rhubarb, for about 30 years, in fact, since I first discovered this wonderful green dog and its friend Custard the pink cat. Rhubarb, with the voice of Richard Briers, was one of the seminal entertainments in my childhood. And sitting there eating rhubarb stew...
Paul challenge.
One of the entertainments in your childhood. Rhubarb and Custard, the show that was 30 years ago. In your childhood... I'm not sure they had television in your childhood.
You often say I've not left my childhood. It might have been my second childhood. It was a delayed childhood, but I take the point you're making.
I'm afraid you have to, Giles, because it's a correct challenge. And Paul, you've got 44 seconds on rhubarb, starting now.
It's meant to be one of those phrases that extras in the back of films meant to mutter to each other. Rhubarb, oh, yes.
Sue,
a couple of minutes. Repetition.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I didn't get it. It was all so quick. Right. So, Sue, you've got rhubarb. No, we've got rhubarb. What a ridiculous thing to say. You have the subject of rhubarb, and there are 40 seconds still available, starting now.
Rhubarb, like the dialogue in Hollyoaks, is forced, often placed in dark environments where those beautiful pink fronds can extend towards the minimal sky. It is one of my favourite flavours, especially when providing the mythical cupcakes I seem to be serving to Gyles Brandreth in each and every scenario he paints on this of the most beautiful of programmes. Its peppery, sweet deliciousness fills your mouth with an explosion of joy, and the colour excites the eyes.
Josie, challenge.
I'd like to challenge because rhubarb is disgusting. It's not pepper. You're making it sound like a rhapsody.
I see how she does when she gets it into her cupcake. The flavour is transformed. It becomes something quite different.
Oh, I love it.
So, Josie, don't you...
I could wax lyrical for at least how long? 23 seconds about it.
Josie, don't you like rhubarb?
It's the only fruit where, to make it palatable, you have to cover it in sugar. Loads of sugar and then bake it.
I tell you, I'll give you a little culinary tip. When you stew it, put in some ginger and lemon and all kinds of things like
but
that.
still what you're saying to me is the flavour itself is disgusting. Mask it as best you can.
Josie, as you haven't played the game so much, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I disagree with your observations on rhubarb, but I'd like you to talk on the subject with 8 seconds still available, starting now.
I think rhubarb is properly disgusting. What a terror of a fruit. Barely sweet at all.
Paul, challenge.
So hesitation.
I know there was. You could have had her for deviation because it's not disgusting.
Also, is it a fruit or a vegetable?
No, it's a vegetable anyway. You could have had a deviation there.
It's a vegetable.
I said it was barely a fruit. Like, I think it's in the arena of fruit, but it's just barely one.
The two leaders are now equal. So Paul gets a point because it's technically a correct challenge.
Oh.
Josie's going to finish the show for us because there's only 2 seconds to go. And you start now.
Distracted. That's not fair.
Doesn't matter, no.
She was distracted.
On behalf of hesitation, on behalf of the Rhubarb Defence League, I will have my say.
Gives you a point because we enjoyed her interruption. But Josie, you still have the subject. 2 seconds still available. Rhubarb, starting now.
Stewed rhubarb. What rhubarb?
Paul, you challenge.
Oh, what's the point?
Rhubarb's revenge.
Deviation from rhubarb.
Can't even say the word. I had 2 seconds. You lined it up for me. It was an open goal. It was an open goal and I just kicked it off the pitch.
But you kept repeating the word stewed, darling. It's not on the card. No.
No, it's all fair. I mean, if anything, what I've proved is I'm a terrible player.
So, Paul, a correct challenge.
I don't deserve your
Well, give Paul another point for a correct challenge and leave it with Josie for half a second to go. Starting now.
Rhubarb.
So Josie Long was then speaker as the whistle went and gained that extra point. And she's finished up in a wonderful 4th place. But it's the contribution and not the points, as I always say. In 3rd place was lovely Sue Perkins, who did so well. And Gyles, who always does so well. He finished up. He's only 1 point behind our leader, who is Paul Merton. So we say, Paul, 1 point. You are the winner. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute. I only have to thank these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Sue Perkins, Gyles Brandreth and Josie Long. I thank Trudy Stevens, who helped me with the score and blew her whistle so elegantly when the 60 seconds elapsed. I don't know why that's funny, but I'm glad you laughed. And we thank our producer, Claire Jones. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. And we're deeply indebted to this lovely Festival Fringe audience here in the BBC tent at Potter Row, who've cheered us on our way with style and panache. So from them and from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye. And tune in again at the same time when we play Just a Minute! Yes. welcome to Just a Minute. Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners in this country and around the world, but also to welcome to the programme four exciting and talented people from show business who are going to show their skill with words and language as they try and speak on the subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And they are, seated on my right, Gyles Brandreth and Stephen Mangan, and seated on my left, Kerry Goddelman and Tony Hawks. Please welcome all four of them. Beside me, it's Chilli Stevens who's going to help me keep a score. She will blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we're going to begin the show this week with Gyles Brandreth. Gyles, the subject I've got for you here is Ode to Joy. Please tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
You, Nicholas, are probably thinking of Ode to Joy, the poem by the great Friedrich Schiller, later set to music by Ludwig van Beethoven, written around 1785, and now, of course, the anthem of the European Union.
Tony, challenge.
Clearly, Nicholas wasn't thinking of that at all.
How on earth do you know, Tony?
Well, I'm just assuming you're as ignorant as I am about it. It was a silly challenge.
No, it wasn't. It was a very intelligent challenge.
Okay.
And whether I admit my ignorance and give it to you, or bluff it out and say, I think it was a good challenge.
Oh, thank you.
Shall we give you a bonus point?
This is Radio 4, Nicholas. Radio 4.
Listen.
This is not 5 Live, Radio 1. Radio 4. All our listeners know about Schiller's Ode to Joy.
I'm giving you a bonus point because I thought it was a very creative challenge. But Gyles was interrupted, and you keep the subject, Gyles. You get a point for an incorrect challenge, as you know, and you have another 45 seconds to continue on Ode to Joy, starting now.
Let me come down to your level then, Mr. Parsons, and tell you about the Ode to Joy that I wrote in 1962 to a charming little person called Joy. She's now a fat old frump, as it happens, with terrible wrinkles and a moustache, but then she was a creature divine. We were in the same class at school, and I wrote an ode to joy.
Tony, challenge again.
Repetition of wrote.
Yes, you wrote it twice. Correct challenge, Tony Hawks. 27 seconds are still available. Ode to Joy, starting now.
I am a huge fan of the German poet that wrote Ode to Joy, which
Gyles, challenge.
You've never heard of him.
Giles, I'll do exactly the same for you as I did to Tony, because you are allowed to bluff in this game. You get a point for an interesting and clever challenge. Tony gets a point because it was interrupted, and he continues with 21 seconds available. Ode to Joy, starting now.
I do know that Ludwig van Beethoven got hold of it and created the Ode to Joy in his 9th symphony. He wrote a great many, and that one...
Giles,
repetition of wrote.
Hoisted on your own petard. Giles, correct challenge. You have a point. You have 11 seconds. Ode to Joy, starting now.
I now realise you may have been spelling this O-W-E-D, and indeed Ode to Joy is still 3 shillings and sixpence, because she lent me her lunch money for a favour that actually I undertook with her behind the bicycle sale.
Only 2 people spoken. Gyles Brandreth, you're in the lead, just 1 point ahead of Tony Hawks. Stephen Mangan, we'd like you to begin the next round. And the subject is special delivery. I don't know whether you've had many in your time, but try and talk. Sorry, did you get it written down all right?
Yes, yes.
Special delivery, 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
I had the good fortune recently to voice an iconic and legendary cartoon character called Postman Pat in his first ever, thank you, motion picture adventure. And I have to say, if anyone knows about special deliveries, it must be Posty Patrick. That's what Signed Sealed, delivered, I'm yours. A special delivery, as any postal operative will know, is when your letter or missive, epistle, package, post, whatever, is delivered within a specified time frame, and possibly you can also check where it is on the internet through a tracking system. Stop. Wait a minute, Mr. Postwoman. Special deliveries are often extremely exciting in Greendale, where it may involve a cup of tea with Mrs. Goggins or rescuing...
That was wonderful. All the variations you put in. The round of applause shows how much they appreciated your talent. So you get a point for speaking when the whistle went, and you get another point for not having been interrupted, but you're still in third place.
You give with one hand, so take away with the other.
Whose go is it next, Nicholas?
And it's going to be Kerry next.
Oh, right. Well, that's easy enough. Just do that, Kerry.
Oh, God. Not intimidating at all.
So, Kerry, we've got something here for you, which I hope you can go on. It's called Life Before Mobile Phones. Want to write it down?
Yeah.
Have a moment to think about it?
Yeah.
Life Before Mobile Phones. There are 60 seconds as always, and you start now.
Life before mobile phones involved sometimes not always speaking to your friends when you'd planned to. So, for example, if you said to somebody, I will call you on Tuesday, and then you made that call, they were out. If they were not at home, then you would not have the opportunity to speak to them. So sometimes friendships just ended, and you would have no means of expressing your feelings to that friend anymore. And I do feel that it's a shame sometimes that we have mobile phones, because you have to speak to people all the time. And I get a feeling of hunted sort of sensation, and I sometimes long for the days before mobile.
I challenge for medical reasons.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I felt she was going to have a coronary if she
Yeah, I should explain to our listeners that he's sitting next to her, and she was getting so animated that the veins were showing at the side of her temples there. And but they let you go a couple of repetitions there, they let go down. But you did very well for the first time. Well done.
Yes.
And you went for 36 seconds.
Oh.
So there are 24 left for you, Tony, with a correct challenge. Life before mobile phones, starting now.
It is difficult, isn't it, for us to imagine what life could possibly have been like before these little iconic objects that sit in our pockets. But we are so reliant on them now. Picture yourself, throw you back to the times when you might have been perhaps at university, queuing outside a phone box. I can remember that. Smelly little places they were too, weren't they? People used to have weaves in them.
So Tony Hawk's within speaking as a whistle went, gained that extra point, and he's moved forward. He's now one ahead of Gyles Brandreth. And Tony, it's your turn to begin. Oh, the subject, a lovely one. That gorgeous book, Cider with Rosie. Will you tell us something about Cider with Rosie in this game, starting now?
Cider with Rosie. Well, Rosie, like Gyles was for hello. Was
Unexpected hesitation.
I just started speaking a foreign language. I was speaking in tongues, wasn't I? I don't know what I tried to do, but it went wrong.
Giles, a correct challenge. A point to you, of course. 55 seconds available. Cider with Rosie, starting now.
It is not generally known that I am a trained midwife. When I was in the clubs, my Arcala awarded me the Midwifery badge because of my ability to deliver children. The first one that actually came out was called Rosie. And we did it not with boiling water, but with warm cider. An extraordinary experience, viewed by Laurie Lee. And I think it was the seeing this that made him realise I could write an extraordinary novel featuring...
Tony challenge.
Well, I think he wrote the novel just after the First World War, didn't he? How old are you then? Because he was, according to your story, he saw you deliver this child and then it gave him the idea for the book.
You speak in tongues and he has premonitions.
No, you're Absolutely right, Tony. It was set in the village of Suede in Gloucestershire, and it was in the 30s. It was pre-war, and he did manage to evoke all the wonderful qualities that existed before the war. And so we give you a correct challenge, Tony, and 26 seconds available. Cider with Rosie, starting now.
Rosie was my first love, beautiful, witty, charming, and yet the thing that drew me to her the most was the fact that her father was a Somerset farmer who had 7 cider presses. And we would go down together to the area where he produced this alcohol and drink enormous amounts of it, which was cheeky and, because we were only 7 years old, not the right thing to do.
Tony Holt, who then Speaker of the Whistle, when gained that extra point for doing so. He's maintained his lead ahead of Gyles by 2 points and 5 ahead of Stephen Mangan. And Gyles, we're back with you. We'd like you to begin the next round. How to accept a compliment. Will you tell us something about that subject? 60 seconds, Gyles, starting now.
As you may imagine, because I am a former Member of Parliament and now work mostly for the British Broadcasting Corporation, most of my friends have been arrested. I very rarely receive compliments these days, and so learning how to accept one has become quite challenging too. But I had an interesting experience a few years ago when I hosted a lunch at which Prince Charles spoke, and afterwards I paid him a compliment, telling him how remarkable his speech had been. He was touched by this. Tears came into his eyes, and he said, "Thank you so much." That same evening, there was another event with the Duke of Edinburgh. To him, I also paid an extravagant compliment. To me, he said, "Bugger off." This is the difference between knowing how to accept a compliment gracefully and perhaps actually speaking the truth. I was appalled by the way that this Greek princeling addressed me, but I thought maybe that is the way I should be doing it in future. So when I accept a compliment...
Well, we don't often have that. 2 complete rounds without interruptions in one show. Giles started with a subject. He wasn't interrupted. He kept going without hesitation, repetition or deviation. And so he gets a point for speaking when the whistle went and an extra point for not being interrupted. And he's moved forward and he's equal now with Tony Hawks in the lead. And Stephen, we'd like you to begin the next round. Across the pond. 60 seconds as usual, starting now.
Across the pond is an idiom, if I'm not very much mistaken, meaning on the other side of the Atlantic. For example, if you asked to someone in London if they came from across the pond, you would be expecting an answer whether they dwell in the United States of America or Canada. The pond is the vast, rolling, roiling ocean.
Giles, challenge.
I don't think it's the roiling ocean. Roiling is not a... Rolling is a word.
Roiling. Roiling is a word. I'm from a long line of roilers.
Well, it could be, Giles, that was the way he felt it worked. Maybe the Atlantic does to him roil rather than roll.
Oh, we can invent words now, can't we? No, that's right. No, you're right, Nicholas. After 48 years, high time to modify the rules. Why not? And why not start tonight with your pet here?
I can't give you a bonus point for petulance. But I can give you one for fun and humour. But I'm not going to take it away from Stephen, because he's trailing you by many points, and tell him that he's got 37 seconds to continue on Across the Pond, starting now.
Do you live in Massachusetts or...
Tony Challenge.
I think he said live the first time. Did he say?
Oh, yes, if you live across...
Yeah, I did. You got me bang to rights, Governor.
He's played the game before. So, Tony, a correct challenge, and you have 33 seconds still available. Across the pond, starting now.
My father remarried and had an American wife and lived across the pond, and I used to become fascinated with the difference between Yanks and Brits. I have a theory. Americans are very open. They don't mind telling about their problems and what's on their mind, whereas British people don't like listening to them when they do.
Kerry challenge.
Don't, wasn't there? You don't like listening
and
don't like...
Well, listen, my darling, 2 don'ts there. Right. So, Kerry, you've got in with 15 seconds to go, my darling. No, that's easy.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Across the pond, think about it. It's 15 seconds starting now.
I used to live in a gorgeous little cottage just next to a pond, and every day I used to get in my little boat to go across the pond to the shops and visit all my friends, and it was a lovely location to live because there were lots of ducks on the pond and everybody used to wave across the water.
So, Kerry was speaking then as the whistle went. Got an extra point for that. Got another one for a correct challenge. So she's now in 4th place, but she's there. And just behind Stephen Mangan. And Kerry, we'd like you to begin the next round. Oh, hen parties. Hen parties, 60 seconds are available, starting now.
Hen parties is a celebration just before you tie the knot, where you get together with a group of people that are of all the same gender as you, so in my case women, and that's a hen party. And if it's a first marriage, you tend to go bananas and have loads of alcohol and wear dealy boppers with things on top and drink...
Stephen challenge. Yes, there was a definite...
I don't like this.
Get a room.
Listen, right, correct challenge, Stephen. Hen parties with you, 41 seconds available, starting now.
I'd have to take objection to what Kerry said. As far as I know, hen parties are exclusively a female occupation. Men have stag do's if they're celebrating a upcoming marriage. My first hen party, what am I talking about? I've never been on one, I'm a man. But I'd love to go. What do women talk about? Do they talk?
Giles.
Repetition of talk.
Yeah, there's too much talk there, I'm afraid. Yes. 21 seconds are still available, Giles, and it's hen parties starting now.
It's rather nice to think of hens getting together in their coops, putting on the funny costumes and toasting Bernard Matthews over a glass of whatever the wine is they prefer to drink. I assume they play amusing games at hen parties, you know, fix the tail on the fox as it goes by, entertainment of different kinds.
So, Giles Brandreth will then speak as the whistle when, gain that extra point, and he's in the lead now, 2 ahead of Tony Hawks, and a few ahead of Stephen Mangan and Kerry Godderman in that order. Tony, it's your turn to begin. The subject is yesterday's news. Will you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
This show is not being transmitted live. Therefore, it is quite difficult for me to tell the listeners at home about yesterday's news, given that it hasn't yet happened for them. This has put me in something as a dilemma. Tomorrow never comes is the expression, but imagine when you have a situation where yesterday's news isn't even on the table. It's worse still when one considers this show is repeated. So even if I am able to make up yesterday's news for the Monday recording...
Yes, you've challenged, Kerry. What was your challenge?
And what is your challenge within the rules, Nicholas? I mean...
yes, it was a repetition.
Yeah, show.
Of show, actually.
Yeah. So you were so quick to spot that, Kerry.
Thank you.
But it was a correct challenge, yes. And you've got 26 seconds available. Yesterday's news starting now.
Yesterday's news is the brand name of the cat litter that I use at home. It is actually made from newspapers, which is scrawled into tiny little balls, and that's why it's called Yesterday's News, because they have used the paper that's the information of the yesterday's thing.
Tony, you challenge.
Yes, a repetition thing.
So, Tony, yes, a correct challenge, so you have a point for that. And there are 8 seconds still available. Yesterday's news starting now.
I tell you what you don't want to happen when you work in show business.
Giles challenge.
Third time you've heard the word show.
Show, yes.
Show business? Show business?
No. It's 2 words. It's both the Oxford English Dictionary, Webster's and Harrods.
Irving Berlin, he definitely had it as one, and is the way.
But he's American.
Oh yes.
We're not over the pond.
So, Giles, that is correct challenge. There's 2 words, right? 4 seconds available still for you, with another point, of course. Yesterday's news starting now.
In Australia, we are already yesterday's news, so there is a fallacy in...
So, Giles got that extra point. And he's moved forward. He's increased his lead over Tony Hawks. And Giles, it's actually your turn to begin. Oh, lovely subject. Twitching curtains. Ooh. Tell us something about twitching curtains, Giles, starting now.
I don't wish to disparage the age of our audience, Nicholas, but looking out at them, they do seem pleasantly mature, suggesting possibly this could be the AGM of the National Trust, or indeed an outbuilding for a saga cruise. The advantage of their maturity is this. They know about twitching curtains. Like me, they enjoy those murder mysteries where folk like Hinge and Brackett are behind the curtains, peering out to see who has the pick of the shelters on the Strand. Is a murder about to take place? This is what we wonder. Gossips gather by the twitching curtains. I have seen Nicholas Parsons himself wearing an amusing little hat and a funny dressing gown, gathered by the curtains, twitching away in excitement as Postman Pat comes tripping along with a special delivery.
Tony, you've challenged.
He's drunk.
And nobody kept going magnificent with that hesitation, repetition.
Well, I think we should bring drug testing into this game, really.
I'll do what I did right at the beginning of the show, Tony. I'll give you a bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption and your humorous comment. But Giles was interrupted, so he gets a point for that. And you've got 5 more seconds, Giles, on twitching curtains starting now.
I once played sardines at Balmoral, and Camilla was actually wrapped up in the curtains.
I don't think it's booze, I think it's drugs.
I think it's inappropriate, too. Well, Stephen, you have a correct challenge. And you have half a second to go. And for our listeners, Giles is ready to challenge. And you start now.
Camilla and I!
Kerry, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is exploring a hotel room. Something we've all experienced, I'm sure. But talk on the subject if you can. 60 seconds starting now.
It's always lots of fun exploring a hotel room. It's best to start with the bathroom because there's often lots of bottles of things that often I steal, and you can take them home and they're full of shampoo and conditioner, and sometimes you even get a little hat that you can wear in the shower. Occasionally I take a towel and then maybe I'll move on into the bedroom and see what is in there. Once I stayed in a hotel room, and when I was exploring behind the chair, I found a tiny woman who was waiting to give me some advice. I said to her, "What are you doing in my hotel room?" And she said, "I'm here to give you..." She had a speech impediment. The lady had a speech impediment. I was quoting her directly.
I've always wanted someone to give me in a hotel room.
Stephen, you challenged? Hesitation. And you have 26 seconds on exploring a hotel room starting now.
The last time I explored a hotel room, I found a little woman beneath a chair. She said to me, "Stephen, I've been waiting here for you for a..."
Kerry challenge.
Why did she speak to you and not to me?
Kerry, I don't think you allowed her to get as far as that. We enjoyed your interruption, so we give you a bonus point for that. But you, Stephen, you were interrupted, so you keep the subject and another point, and 18 seconds on exploring a hotel room starting now.
The best thing about exploring a hotel room for the first time is flinging open the door and rushing in and going, "Woohoo, I'm here!" Unfortunately, the rooms I tend to stay in are so small that by then I've smacked my face into the opposite wall and fallen in a crumpled heap on a little old hag who's sitting under a...
Challenge.
Repetition of little.
Little old hag. Oh dear, what a pity, because you only had 2 seconds to go.
But
it was a correct challenge, so being...
Why are there never any women in the hotel rooms I go in?
Well, you'll have to speak to Kerry and Stephen. So, Giles, a correct challenge. 2 seconds to go. Exploring a hotel room starting now.
Exploring a hotel room is always exciting. You might find...
Well, we're moving into the final round, I'm afraid. Oh, your lovely audience. Right. I'll give you the situation as we do. Gyles Brandreth is still in the lead. He's 3 ahead of Tony Hawks, and they're about 4 ahead of Stephen Mangan, and he's a few ahead of Kerry Godalming in that sequence. And Stephen, it's your turn to begin, and the subject is guests who stay too long. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
If you have guests who stay too long, you only have yourself to blame. What you need to do is go into the kitchen, open a drawer, pick out the largest knife, walk to the doorway, stand staring at them for 2 minutes without saying anything, and I guarantee they will leave. Or open a vein and write, "I will kill again" on the wall with your own blood, while giggling in a high-pitched voice, "Oh, stop it, Mr. Darcy." Never fails. Obviously, people who don't leave when the time is right are lacking the ability to spot the social signals. So you need to up your game. Start yawning, look at your watch, say, "Oh my goodness, you lot are boring," and actually fall asleep. Eventually, they will tiptoe away into the night and you will be free from these guests who refuse to leave. And then you can let the party begin. Oh, hello.
So you challenge.
Was there a repetition of party?
I wasn't listening, I was carried away with it all. I was actually thinking how I could get Kerry in on the last subject with a few seconds to go.
She buzzed just after
She has no chance of winning, so it wouldn't make a lot of difference to her. It wouldn't make any difference to the score if I gave a point to Stephen on that as a incorrect challenge. So, Stephen, you don't mind, do you?
Not at all.
Not at all, lovely.
I can't win either.
So, Kerry, no. You have 11 seconds, my darling.
Right.
On guests who stay too long, starting now.
I am a guest that stays too long. Whenever I've been to Stephen's house, I'm not at all remotely threatened by his knife wielding and blood spurting. I have no regard for how awkward someone feels about me outside.
Kerry Godalming was in speaking as the whistle went and gained an extra point for doing that, and she's finished up in a magnificent 4th place. But in this show, it is not the points, as I say, it's a contribution. Just ahead of her was Stephen Mangan, who went for a whole 60 seconds earlier on and nearly achieved it again. And he's just trailing Tony Hawks. But Tony is 3 points behind Gyles Brandreth, so we say, Gyles, you are our winner this week. So it only remains me to say thank you to these 4 exciting players of the game. Gyles Brandreth, Stephen Mangan, Kerry Godalming and Tony Hawks. I thank Trudy Stevens, who's helped me with the score and blown the whistle so magnificently. We're grateful to the man who created this amazing game, Ian Messiter. We're grateful to our producer, Katie Tyrrell. We're thankful to this audience here who've cheered us on our way. And from them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye, thank you. And tune in again at the same time next week when we play Just a Minute.